Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our webinar today. Our topic is Introduction to the New Market Surveillance Regulation. And our speakers are Martin Büscher from the Tradability GmbH and Christopher Blaut from GetIRight. Before we start, I would like to point out that we have muted your microphones. However, you're welcome to ask questions. Just write your question in the questions area in the GoToWebinar toolbox. At the end of the webinar, we will answer some of your questions. If your question is not included, please feel free to contact us after the webinar. One more note, you can also download the presentation as a PDF in the GoToWebinar toolbox. It is in the Documents section. And now I hope you enjoy listening, and I will hand over to our speakers.
Thank you very much, Elena. My name is Christopher. I would also like to welcome you to our new webinar about the market surveillance regulation. In today's webinar, we will be talking about the new market surveillance regulation. As a first point, we will talk about the background and aim. We will talk about the requirements of the market surveillance regulation, about your obligations, about competencies and tasks of authorities, about possible sanctions, about opportunities and recommendations. As a second point, we will talk about the solution, which is the European Authorized Representative for Germany, which we will call from now on the European Authorized Rep. Afterwards, we will talk about our e-system solutions for the market surveillance regulation. And as a fourth point, we will answer the most common questions of today's webinar. I will now hand over to Martin, who will give you an overview about our company's profile.
Thank you, Christopher. I'm Martin Büscher, the Technical Manager of Tradability, and would like to introduce you to the e-system company group. We have here 3 pillars, and the first pillar, called Takeaway, is a consultancy firm and service provider for product stewardship for waste law in Europe. What we supply, where we give help, is in electrical appliance and batteries, packagings, and so on. The second pillar is the so-called GetIRight. That's a consultancy firm and service provider for authorization services, like electrical appliances, batteries, product safety, and as well for April. What I'd like to say is that the authorized representative in product law is required to carry out documentation and communication obligations toward market surveillance authorities, and that's what GetIRight offers. The second and third pillar here is the Tradability, and that is a consultant firm and service provider to ensure marketability of products into the European Economic Area. We secure product compliance, product labeling, and product certification. In sum, we are an international active group of companies based in Hamburg. Yes, we have experience about since 2005, and currently we are more or less 67 employees, support more than 6,000 manufacturers. And last but not least, our consulting and main language is European, but also Chinese. So at this stage, I hand over to Christopher to get more in details.
Thank you very much. I now would like to start with the introduction to the basics of the market surveillance regulation. The market surveillance regulation will come into effect next year, to be more precise on July 16, 2021. The market surveillance regulation has the aim of strengthening the market surveillance in general, to better enforce the harmonization laws that are existing in the European Union in order to protect, for example, the customers and the environment, to create stricter rules for cooperation between, on the one hand, market surveillance authorities and on the other hand, economic operators, but also to implement a framework for products that are to be imported into the European Union. What is really important with regard to the market surveillance regulation is to take the interaction with other European product laws into account, because this new regulation will apply in addition to all the already existing product laws. This actually means that every manufacturer has to make sure that the product are actually compliant at this point in time. The new market surveillance regulation kind of creates a framework around all these existing product laws in order to fill some of the voids that have been existing in some of the regulations and directives, but also to provide a general guidance for economic operators. The regulations and directives that are affected by the market surveillance regulation can be somehow described as the harmonized non-food area. We will talk about it in a little bit later. I will now hand over to Martin, who will give you an overview about the affected economic operators.
Thank you, Christopher. According to the motto, no product without responsible, the new market surveillance regulation extends the number of economic operators. But you know, so far we had the manufacturer, the importer, and the authorized rep. But now the fulfillment service provider is added. This means that the platform operator is affected if it provides 2 of 4 services, which are storage, packaging, addressing, and dispatch of products. That the outcome is that the solution for fulfillment service providers outside EU could be to use an authorized rep, what is introduced in the next slide. To make clear who is the first point of contact for the authorities, I've displayed here a kind of hierarchy of responsibility. The responsibility always passes over. At the first step, we have the manufacturer. If he's not based into the EU, the responsibility passes over to the importer. And if there's no importer, or the importer get bankrupt or something else, the responsibility passes over to the fulfillment service provider. That's what I call the hierarchy of responsibility. To get out of these tracks, you can choose not authorized rep, authorized rep. These authorized rep must be contracted, so he only can act on behalf of you. So thank you for that, and I hand over to Christopher.
Thank you very much. Now you might be asking yourselves, what kind of regulations and directives are actually affected by the market surveillance regulation? As I've just mentioned, it is the harmonized non-food area of the European Union. There are a lot of requirements affected by it, and there are actually 70 requirements, so 70 regulations and directives affected by the market surveillance regulation. Unfortunately, it would take too much time to go through every single regulation and directive in today's webinar. So I would like to point out a few regulations and directives. You will be able to find in this list of regulations and directives the regulation REACH, but you will also be able to find, for example, the directive ROHS or even the directive WEEE. Now, within the market surveillance regulation, there is also a part with specific obligations. Those specific obligations apply to various products, to specific products. To be more precise, those specific obligations apply to products that are within the scope of 18 different directives and regulations. You can see on this slide that, for example, toys would be affected by these specific obligations, or even building products. But you will also be able to find, for example, the Eco Design Directive in this list. It is important to know that the market surveillance regulation is asking for an European-based economic operator for products that fall within the scope of the specific obligations. Now I will hand over to Martin, who will tell you a little bit more about these specific obligations.
Thank you, Christopher. So let's talk about obligations of market operators. In principle, there are two kinds of obligations: the product labeling and documentations on one side, and the care of product safety on the other side. The passport of a CE-relevant product is the declaration of conformity. It has to submit the market surveillance authorities on demand, and that's very important for you to have this sheet of paper. What we also have is the technical documentation, and this covers all the documentation you need to handle out to the market authorities. The market operators must be able to hand over the whole technical documentation. Also, he has to detect product faults proactively. And last but not least, he has to ensure completion of corrective actions. And this could be publish product risk warnings or organize product recalls. At the next slide, I would like to talk about product labeling. Why do we highlight this? Product labeling is transparent and accessible to all market participants, so customers and regulators could see that. The economic operators established in the EU must provide the following contact details, which are the name of the company, the trade name or trademark, called brand, and the contact address. Depending upon the CE directive, it could appear in particular on the product or on the packaging. So be very careful with that. And by this, I hand over to Christopher.
Thank you very much. Now you have heard about what kind of directive and regulations are affected, what kind of economic operators would be affected by the market surveillance regulation, and also what the specific obligations are. Now you might be wondering, at what point in time do I have to ensure that my products are actually compliant? We would like to highlight 3 points in times in today's webinar. The first one: when you're placing your product on the European market, you have to make sure that your products are compliant. The second point in time is when you're offering your products for sales, for example, via distance selling through an online shop. This is also the point in time where you have to be compliant, because this would actually be considered as placing on the market when this offer is directed at European customers. The third point in time that we would like to highlight is when your products are to be imported into the European Union and they enter the customs territory of the European Union. The products also have to be compliant. Otherwise, they could be stopped by the customs, and that's something we will talk about later on. Now you might be asking yourselves, who controls me as an economic operator and who controls my products. On the one hand, for products that have been placed on the market, market surveillance authorities would take care of market surveillance, such as, for example, the German Federal Network Agency. For products that are to be imported into the European Union, customs authorities would take care of market surveillance. I would now like to talk a little bit more about the tasks and duties of these authorities. Let me start with the duties of the market surveillance authorities. They will review the product based on a review of documents or based on product sampling and related laboratory tests. What is really important to point out is that the scope and type of products to be checked is determined based on a risk-based approach, which actually means that, for example, if an economic operator has been placing non-compliant products on the European market, it's most likely that this economic operator and products of this economic operator will be chosen for tests again. Now I would like to talk a little bit about powers. We have highlighted the five of them on this slide. According to this, they will the market surveillance authorities will have access to all relevant information, data, and documentation, even about information on the supply chain, on information about the ownership structure of websites. They will have the power to take or order corrective measures such as a recall, and they even have the power to order a sales ban. They can also remove content from websites or even instruct the access denial for economic operators. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about customs authorities and what they will, what kind of points they are looking at if your products is to be released into the free circulation on the European market. First of all, they will be looking whether or not the name, the registered trade name or the registered trade mark, including contact details, is attached to the product. What's really important to mention with regard to this is that if your product applies to these specific obligations, they will also check whether or not you have attached contact details and the name of an European-based economic operator. They will also take a look whether or not the CE mark is attached to the product correctly or misleading, or if it's not allowed to attach the CE mark on this kind of product. They will also take a look whether or not the product label in general is correct or in any case misleading. For example, if any marks are attached to the product that are actually not allowed, such as, for example, the ROHS mark, which is already covered by the CE mark. They will be looking whether or not the required documents, such as a declaration of conformity, is enclosed with the product. They will be taking a look whether or not there's any other reason to believe that the product is non-compliant, or whether or not the product does pose a risk, for example, to consumers or the environment. And if there's any reason to believe that some of these points are not correct, they actually will block the product from getting into the European Union. And that's something that we have seen in the past, that, for example, because of a wrong product labeling, that the customs authorities have blocked products from getting into the European Union. This leads me to the next slide, which is about the possible sanctions that could result because of a non-compliant product. If, for example, a product is not allowed to be marked with a CE mark, but nevertheless, the economic operator has marked the product with a CE mark, it could result in a corrective measure and relabeling of the product. If a product is non-compliant and it doesn't make sense from a technical standpoint of view or even from a financial standpoint of view to carry out corrective measures, it could result in the destruction of goods. Related to this, there are transportation costs and disposal costs. If your product is, for example, blocked by the customs, this could mean that you're not able to fulfill the orders of your customers, and thus this could lead to a loss of sales. Fines could be related to non-compliant products. If a product is non-compliant and a customer has, for example, injured himself on this kind of product because of the non-compliance, and media has become aware of it, it could result and lead to a huge loss of reputation. There could be storage costs. If, for example, the products need to be stored somewhere until it's determined whether or not the product is compliant or corrective measures need to be carried out. There could be processing fees because of a non-compliant product. On the one hand, from authorities, but on the other hand, also from service providers that have been hired in order to carry out corrective measures. There could be laboratory costs if a laboratory test is needed in order to determine whether or not the product is compliant. Risky products could be reported to RAPEX, which is an online platform where customers and authorities have access and can see risky products. This again could lead to a huge loss of reputation. And last but not least, there might be a recall necessary if a product is non-compliant. This actually means that you need to get the products back from the customer. Those kind of recalls could be very cost intensive. Now I would like to hand over to my colleague Martin, who will give you an overview about the opportunities and recommendations for the market surveillance regulations.
Thank you, Christopher. So let us take a look on what we can figure out of the market surveillance regulation. What we can say is that the market surveillance regulation does not necessarily extend the obligations of those responsible for products. But compliance will be more transparent and product responsibility shared more widely among market participants. So for the competitor, it becomes fairer. If you follow the market surveillance regulation, you will reach protection against warnings. Also, more economic operators are affected. Support for economic operators by the Commission is planned, but at the moment not yet implemented. Requirement provide orientation for economic operators, and ensuring the conformity of your products will be what you have to take care of. To be properly prepared, we recommend the following. First of all, ensure the conformity of your product, especially the product labeling we talk about. Secondly, place product conformity as an issue in the supply chain. And the third point is be prepared. The scope of product requirements could be large. Act on time. There can be a lot of things to do. So at the end, I hand it over to Christopher again.
Thank you very much. I would like to present to you a solution for the market surveillance regulation, which is called the European Authorized Rep for Germany. This European Authorized Rep represents one of the economic operators that can be appointed in order to fill some of the tasks of the market surveillance regulation. The European Authorized Rep also can provide you with an European-based address and contact details of an European-based economic operator. In today's webinar, I would like to point out a few important duties of an European authorized representative. First of all, the European authorized rep needs to store the declaration of conformity as well as all the technical documents for a period of 10 years. In most cases, this period of time would be 10 years. There could be some differences depending on what kind of regulation and directives is applicable to the product. As a second task, the European authorized rep needs to work as a contact person for market surveillance authorities. This actually means if a product, for example, is assumed to be non-compliant, the authorities can contact the European authorized rep and ask for all the technical documents and the declaration of conformity in order to check those documents for compliance. The European authorized rep has to hand over all these documents if it's a reasonable request. Furthermore, the European authorized rep has to cooperate with authorities and the manufacturer in case a product does pose a risk. In such a case, they need to make sure that the risk is eliminated and minimized. These three tasks can be summarized as the European authorized rep being a link between the authorities and the manufacturer. I would like to highlight two more tasks that are based on the Product Safety Act in Germany. The European authorized rep needs to carry out product sampling on the market. This actually means that the European authorized rep has to go to the market and take a look at products that the European authorized rep represents and check whether or not those products are compliant. The second task is keeping track of product safety complaints. This actually means that a customer who has identified a risk safety issue of a problem can report this kind of problem to the European authorized rep. And the European authorized rep has to check whether or not it's a reasonable complaint and corrective measures need to be taken. If corrective measures such as a recall need to be taken, again, the European authorized rep needs to cooperate with authorities and the manufacturer in order to carry out those corrective measures. What I would like to highlight or point out is that this does not relate to complaints of customers because of product dislikes. So for example, if a cup and the color of the cup is not liked by the customer, that's a complaint that is not supposed to be addressed to the European authorized rep. It really relates to product safety complaints. I now would like to hand over to Martin, who will give you an overview about our e-systems approach, so our solutions for the market surveillance regulation.
Thank you, Christopher. We hope that at the end you are not too confused of all this stuff here, and we have to help you kind of a panel of packages which can help you through all these threads. So first of all, we have a basic solution which called the product compliance check of your online shop. We noticed that a lot of threat by implementing of the market surveillance regulation, and that's why we can help you by this unique service here. It aims to ensure correct labeling of exemplary products in your shop. To do this, we make a review of your products offered in the shop, and we search for obvious mistakes. We identify risk and figure out compliance risk status, and at the end, we can ask you you can ask us possibly to remedy problems found, and that's our service to do that. The second packet is the so-called product compliance full service. With this service, we ensure that the technical documentation of the product is valid and stands up to inspection by the authorities. The marketability check includes a label check and verification of the documents. Communication with suppliers, e.g., if documents are requested, is, I think, very fine service by us. we support in the implementation of product conformity. But let me say, 100% safety is not realistic. So the way to implement product conformity depends on the risk accepted by our clients. At the end, we make some recommendations and suggestions. And also we talk about measures we have to recommend, and we discuss it by phone. These two services go hand in hand with those services and solutions given by GetIRight. So I pass on to Christoph. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our complete solution is the European Authorized Rep for Germany. We can offer this service for almost all directives and regulations for Germany. Unfortunately, we're not able to offer this service for medical products, for cosmetic products, and for food. As part of our service solution, we will store your technical documents and the declaration of conformity for a period of 10 years. As I've just told you in today's webinar, there could be some differences depending on what kind of directives and regulations apply to your product. Another part of this service solution is that we will support you with the communication with authorities. We do have a handling process in place in order to deal, for example, with requests from authorities with regard to the technical documents, but also with regard to corrective measures. A really crucial aspect of our service solution is testing and certification of the products, which is done by our affiliated company Traceability. So they will check whether or not your products are marketable for Germany, and they will also help you to reach marketability if you require this support. Another important aspect is the aspect of continuous product monitoring. So this actually means that we have measures in place that make sure that we can determine over an extended period of time that your products are compliant. This is really helpful for you to ensure this. We can offer you various registration services, for example, for electrical equipment, for batteries, for April, but also we can support you with packaging. Another really important aspect of this service solution is, from our point of view, the aspect of the product protection insurance. Because even though everything is done that to make sure that no product failures and product risks are posed by the product, it could be possible that corrective measures need to be taken. This product protection insurance does cover corrective measures to some extent. So it really helps you that if even corrective measures need to be taken, such as a recall, it helps you to have and contributes to the financial security of your company. And last but not least, we do offer free consultation with regard to the marketability. You can contact our affiliated company Traceability, and with regard to the authorization services, you can contact our company GetIRight. Now I would like to hand over to Elena, who has been keeping track of the most important questions that have been asked during this webinar, and we would be very happy to answer them now.
Yes, so thank you, both of you, and thanks also to all our listeners. And we hope our contents were instructive and interesting for you. And please send us your feedback afterwards if you have any ideas for improvements. As announced, I will now ask our speakers a few more questions that you have asked. So thank you for the questions. The first question we have here is there any chance to carry out corrective measures if custom authorities block products from entering the European Union because of incorrect product labeling?
Okay, let me answer this. I think, yes, if goods are not released by customs, the goods can be transferred to a blocked warehouse. So these blocked warehouses are set up by forwarding agents. The goods there can be reworked. So if you're able to know, or if you know what to do, you can rework the wares, the articles there. But after that, the goods must be imported again at customs. Is it clear enough? I think. Yeah.
So we have the second question. For which countries does GetRight offer the service of the EU rep?
Thank you, Elena. That's a very good question. So for the time being, we do offer the service for Germany. So that is our key market. We do have profound knowledge in this kind of market, but also in other European countries. This is why we would highly appreciate if you contact us if you have interest in extending the service to other European countries. We would be very happy to take a note of this and discuss a possible extension in more detail with you.
Okay, so we go on with the next question. Amazon has asked us for the declaration of conformity recently. Is Amazon asking for the declaration of conformity because they will have the extended duties as a fulfillment service provider after the new market surveillance regulation will come into effect?
Okay, let me answer again. I think, yes, this can be assumed. That is, Amazon is quite a closed shop. So on our experience, the declaration of conformity are even checked. But we cannot check up this fact. What we also have in our experience is that unfortunately, these checking is not always correctly. So it can be that the declaration of conformity is not quite good for market surveillance authorities, but for Amazon, it works. So at the end, you need 2 or more declaration of conformity, what is not in the sense of the market authorities, but it's fact. Okay.
We have the next question, I think. It's who is able to check all technical documents of a product according to the legal requirements?
Oh, this is easy to answer. I offered this service. Tradability offers exactly this service.
Wow.
Yes. We also check the labeling of the product too. And I tell this as experience shows, it is more important to have a quite good labeling as to have a quite good and 100% checked documentation. First of all, labeling is to take care of.
Right, so that's very important. We have our last question for today, and this question is, who is able to appoint a European authorized representative?
Thank you. That's a really good question. Actually, every manufacturer can appoint a European authorized rep. It doesn't really matter if the manufacturer is based in Germany, any other European country, or in a third country. The motivation of appointing a European authorized rep might be different depending on where you are based. Manufacturer who's based in Europe or Germany might appoint an European authorized rep in order to have a professional handling concept in place in case authorities are contacting the manufacturer, or in case corrective measures need to be taken. For manufacturers that are based outside Europe, there could be a different motivation, as we have just discussed in this webinar. Products that are applicable to the specific obligations of the market surveillance regulation, they need to have an economic operator in place. If they, for example, there's no other European-based economic operator in place, the European authorized rep would be one of the persons that could be appointed to take over some of those duties that we have just discussed in today's webinar, and also who can provide you the European contact details and address of an European authorized rep. So as to summarize it, every manufacturer can appoint a European authorized rep, but as I've just mentioned, the motivation might be different. Some need an authorized rep and some appoint this European authorized on a voluntary basis, and just in order to have those this professional handling concept in place.
Right, so now we are through with our questions. We still have some questions that are not answered yet. So we would really be happy if you could contact us later and so that we have a chance to answer the question we did not answer right now. Now we can have a look at the next chart. There we see, there you can see who you can contact if your question was not answered live here. So if you have questions to the basis solution and extended solutions, please contact our colleague Boris Bern from Chatability. If you have a question about the complete solutions, please write an email or call Christopher Blaut. You know him already because he has talked to you. And yeah, so this is how you can get in touch with us. So now we would like to tell you that we are constantly expanding our range of seminars and webinars, and that we already offer a comprehensive range of further training courses. And in this chart, you can see where you can get an overview. It's in the Academy section on our website. Then we have posted here an overview about our social media channels. Perhaps you would like to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. We would be happy about that. Also, you are welcome to subscribe to our newsletter, which will automatically inform you about changes in legislation and news. So we would be pleased if you would also take a look there. And then I can only wish you a great day. And now, thank you for listening, and we say bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you and bye-bye.